The quieter you become, the more the world starts to listen. But I know, there's a question that often echoes in the hearts of men trying to grow every single day. How do I make sure that silence doesn't come off as weakness or avoidance, or not knowing what to do? Real strength isn't found in how loud your voice is. It's found in the steadiness of your presence. And that kind of presence only shows up when you truly know who you are, what you stand for, and you've outgrown the need to argue just to defend your ego. She won't say it out loud, but she always feels it when you lose yourself. Women have intuition. They don't need to ask. They don't need confirmation. They'll know by how you step back when you shouldn't, by how you force a smile when you should have stood your ground, by how you try to hold on to the relationship at all costs, even if it costs you yourself. And slowly, in her eyes, you're no longer the steady man she can lean on. You become someone who's easily swayed by emotions, especially her emotions. The strongest man isn't the one who's loved the most, but the one who's not afraid to be alone. Real magnetism doesn't come from chasing. It comes from your quiet, centered presence, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything. Attraction doesn't come from how well you please people. It comes from intentional stillness, from not needing to fill the silence with words, with actions, or with someone else. I get it. In this chaotic world we're living in, where your phone never stops buzzing, where people expect you to be softer, more open, easier to figure out, holding your masculine center isn't easy. But you've got to choose live like a blade of grass, bending with the wind, predictable, easily manipulated. Or live like a stone, steady, quiet, but impossible to ignore when real decisions are being made. In this video, I'm going to share with you 7 boundaries that have helped thousands of men, including myself, reclaim their calm, their respect, and that raw masculine magnetism, both in relationships and in life. This isn't some tactic to win women over. No, this is the art of returning to who you truly are. So if you are at a point in your life where you don't want to live even one more day, being emotionally controlled, undone by someone else's silence, or forgotten by the man in the mirror, then this video is for you. And I want you to do more than just watch it for entertainment. Watch it to reflect, to apply, to turn these principles into your personal code. Now, let's begin. 1. Never reward disrespect. Let me paint a picture for you. You're sitting alone in a quiet room. It's late, and your mind starts replaying all those moments you stayed silent, not because you didn't notice what hurt you, but because you didn't want to cause conflict. You thought, if I just stay patient, stay gentle, maybe she'll understand. Maybe things will change. But let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed this? The more you tolerated, the more you gave, the less you were valued. And one day you look in the mirror, and you don't see a strong man anymore. You see someone just hoping to be treated better, but too afraid to ever demand it. I know that feeling. I've sat across from hundreds of men in their 40s, 50s, men who gave up their soul just to hold on to a relationship that had long lost its respect. And I'm going to tell you something. It might sound harsh, but it's the truth. When you accept disrespect, you're not just hurting yourself. You're teaching people how to treat you. Respect doesn't come from sweet words or little "I love you" texts or romantic nights out. Respect is shown when no one else is watching. It's in her tone when you say no. It's in whether she pauses, reflects, and adjusts. Not out of fear, you'll walk away, but because she knows you have standards, a backbone, values she doesn't want to lose. I've gotten this wrong before. I used to be the understanding guy. I forgave too quickly, but over time I realized. Every time I stayed quiet after a snide remark, every time I came back after being ignored, every time I apologized for something that wasn't my fault, I was sending the same message. You can do whatever you want, and I'll still be here. And that, my friend, is the fastest way to lose attraction, respect, and yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. If you let someone repeatedly hurt you, you've handed over that power. And once you do that, it's on you." Now hear me. Women don't test you because they're bad. They test you because they want to know, can you hold your ground? If you crumble in the face of disrespect, you're not the man she leans on. You're the man she controls. A man with no boundaries. That's not a safe place to land. That's a target. I'm not saying be cold, controlling, or manipulative. I'm saying this. If you don't know how to say that's enough, if you don't know how to walk away, you'll slowly become someone even you don't respect. Stand firm without yelling. Set consequences without blaming. For example, if she disrespects you in front of others, look her in the eye and calmly say, "I don't accept being spoken to like that." And if it happens again, don't pull back in anger. Step away with clarity because you have standards. And here's the thing. When you truly live by your boundaries, you won't need to demand respect. You'll command it through your presence. People will adjust on their own because they know where your line is. If you're in a relationship where you're constantly enduring things, ask yourself, am I rewarding disrespect? And if the answer is yes, stop. Not to punish them, but to protect yourself. 2. Peace isn't a reward. It's a responsibility. You must protect. A Stoic man doesn't let life drag him into chaos. You can't lead love or build anything meaningful if your mind is constantly in turmoil. Picture this. You walk into a room where everything is loud. People talking, phones ringing, the news blasting across the screen. Someone just had an argument in the hallway, and right there in the middle of it all, you sit, still, unshaken, not reacting, just observing. That's not coldness, that's peace. And peace, contrary to what most people think, doesn't show up when everything's calm. It's something you choose to hold on to in the middle of the storm. I've worked with countless men in their 40s and 50s, guys with families, careers, but minds tangled like a ball of wire. They'd tell me I'm exhausted. I feel like I've lost control of everything. Not because they were weak, but because no one ever taught them how to protect the quiet inside their own mind. Have you ever felt like that? Like you're constantly reacting to every text, every glance she gives another guy, every offhand comment from a coworker. Your mind starts to feel like a live news feed, always running, always pulled, always triggered. A Stoic man knows peace isn't a prize someone gives you for being good. It's a discipline. It's a responsibility. You build it. You guard it. And you say no to anything that tries to take it away. Because once you lose your inner calm, you lose the ability to lead yourself. And if you can't lead yourself, you won't be able to lead anyone else. Not a family, not a relationship, not a business, not even a dream. I remember a former US Marine once told me, after he came home from service, the hardest part wasn't the battlefield. It was keeping my mind clear when civilian life turned out to be even louder than the gunfire. I never forgot that. See, the world often confuses fast reactions with strength. People think the faster I act, the more control I have. But the truth is the opposite. The strongest man isn't the one who reacts first. He's the one who can choose silence, who can wait, who can say no without needing to justify himself. When's the last time you said no, not out of anger, not to manipulate, but simply because that's not worth disturbing my peace? That's the kind of man I want you to become. A man who doesn't trade his mental clarity to keep a woman from walking away. Who doesn't sacrifice his peace just to earn praise from the world. Who doesn't let the fear of being left make him dance to someone else's chaos. You've got to protect your peace like it's the last kingdom left inside you. Because when everything else crumbles, money, love, career, what remains is the stillness in your heart. And from that place, you can rebuild everything. So if you've been caught in a loop, constantly chasing pleasing showing up just to make someone happy, I'm inviting you to pause, sit down, take a breath, and ask yourself, is the price I'm paying for all this noise really worth it? Because maybe the one thing you truly need isn't more chances, more attention, or more love. Maybe it's less noise, so you can finally hear your own voice again. Peace, that's where a real man is reborn. 3. Don't overshare. She doesn't need to know everything about you. What she truly craves is depth, mystery, something she can discover over time. Because mystery, that's a primal magnetism. Too much information. It kills attraction. I get it. We grew up in a world that taught us. Communication is the key. That if you really want to connect, you've got to share everything. The more, the better, right? But here's something most people won't admit. Not everything you feel needs to be said, and not every honest confession makes you more attractive. Here's the truth, women don't want to know it all about you. They want to feel like there's more to you than meets the eye. That's the difference between a relationship that pulls her in and one that makes her feel suffocated. I once sat down with a man in his 40s, heartbroken after a breakup. He told me I shared everything with her. My childhood trauma, my panic attacks, the moments I failed, every insecurity I ever had. I thought she'd understand me more, feel closer. But one day, she just walked away, and I didn't get it. I looked him in the eye and said, "She didn't leave because of who you are. She left because it felt like she had to carry all of you, when all she really wanted was to stand beside a man who could carry himself." Have you ever done that and thought that if she knew how broken, how unsure, how hurt you've been, she'd love you more? But sometimes that doesn't make you more lovable. It makes you a project. And women don't fall in love with projects. They fall for the man who's learned how to carry his own weight. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to be cold or emotionally shut off. Feelings are part of who you are. But how you hold those feelings, that's where your strength shows. She doesn't need you to spill every thought you have. She needs to feel there's a world inside you, a world she has to earn her way into. Picture this. You walk into a house. It's bright, beautiful, but every window and door is wide open. You can see everything inside. There's nothing left to explore, no sense of wonder. Now picture a different house, quiet, with soft light glowing through the window's curtains, drawn just enough to keep you curious. You don't know exactly what's inside, but you feel something meaningful is there. That's the energy of a Stoic man. He doesn't talk too much, but every word, every glance, every action makes you want to lean in a little closer. If you reveal everything too soon, you kill the mystery. And once the mystery dies, so does the spark. Love is like a journey. If the whole map is already laid out, the trip ends fast. I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying hide. I'm saying hold back with intention. Don't be an open diary. Be a deep book. Let her earn the right to turn the next page. And remember, a mature woman doesn't love you because you're broken. She loves you because you're strong enough to hold your broken pieces without making her carry them for you. Hold something back, not because you fear getting hurt, but because you know the value of what's inside. And the right woman. She won't need you to spell it all out. She'll move closer slowly, quietly, not to interrogate, but to understand. And she'll fall for you, not because of how much you say, but because, in your silence, she feels your depth. 4. Always be willing to walk away, not because you're cold, but because you're loyal to your mission and your values. A man who isn't afraid to lose is the kind of man a woman can't afford to lose. I want you to sit still for a moment, take a deep breath, and honestly answer this. When was the last time you stayed in a relationship, a job, or a situation just because you were afraid to lose it? I'm not asking to make you feel ashamed. I'm asking to remind you the fear of loss is one of the most subtle forms of chains. It rusts silently, and over time, it eats away at who you are. I've worked with many men in their 40s and beyond. Men who used to be strong, grounded, free. But one day they sit across from me, eyes dry not from tears, but from no longer recognizing the man in the mirror. They had compromised too much, stayed silent too often, given up too many pieces of themselves just to keep someone from leaving. And the tragedy. When you give up your core to keep someone, you end up losing them anyway. Women don't walk away because you stand your ground. They walk away when you lose yourself. Now, I want you to picture this kind of man. He has a clear mission, strong values, a life with direction. He's not rude. He doesn't threaten. But if someone disrespects his standards, he stands up and walks away. No yelling, no drama. Just quiet conviction, because he knows he can't stay in a place that no longer aligns with his soul. You feel the power in that. That's not coldness. That's not arrogance. That's absolute loyalty to himself. Women feel that. When they sense you don't rely on their presence to feel whole, they treat you differently. Not out of fear, but out of respect. Being willing to walk away doesn't make you the bad guy. It makes you a man with standards. And standards, they're how the world measures your value. A man who can walk away is a man a woman won't dare disrespect, is a man friends don't take advantage of, is a man the world, whether it likes him or not, respects. You've heard the saying, he who knows he can live without something always controls it. Apply that to love, to your career, to every relationship. And you'll see you don't need to control others. You just need to master yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A man who doesn't rule himself is forever a slave, even if he lives in a palace." So if you're in a space where your core values are being compromised, walk away. No rebellion, no explanation. Just walk with quiet dignity. Because here's the truth. The man who knows how to walk away is the only one truly worthy of being kept. 5. Don't react emotionally. Respond with reason. I want you to pause for a second and think back to the last time you got swept up in your emotions. Maybe it was during an argument. Maybe it was when she went quiet, turned away, and it felt like your whole world collapsed inside you. You said something too quickly, and later you wished you'd just kept your mouth shut. We've all been there, haven't we? But it's in those moments when you're being tested that you find out what kind of man you really are. Are you like the wind shifting and blowing in every direction depending on someone's tone, mood, or silence? Or are you like the oak tree rooted unmoved, still standing strong in the middle of the storm, not shaken by a little rain? This is where Stoic philosophy becomes priceless. A Stoic man isn't someone who has no emotions. He's someone who doesn't let emotions decide his actions, because he understands. Any action born from fear, anger, or insecurity usually leads to a result you'll have to pay for with regret. Let me tell you a story. A middle-aged man married over 20 years once told me, "I used to think if I explained myself enough, if I argued strong enough, she'd understand me. But the more I explained, the more I lost the steadiness she once admired in me." See, sometimes women don't need answers. They just need to see something in you, a calm that doesn't shake. That's what makes her feel safe. And listen, calmness isn't an act. True calm only comes when you no longer need someone else's emotions to define your own value. There's a principle I learned from Epictetus. People can hurt you, but only if you allow them into your mind. Think about that. When she's angry, pulls away, or throws sharp words at you, that's not your cue to fight back. That's your moment to hold your ground, to respond with reason, not react from emotion. You don't need to win. You need to remain grounded. And this goes far beyond romantic relationships. It applies to work, to friendships, to those tense family dynamics that push your buttons. Real strength isn't about reacting quickly. It's about responding wisely. It's in that space when you pause, breathe deep, and ask yourself, is this reaction serving the man I'm becoming? And when you learn to do that, something powerful happens. People start changing how they treat you, not because you force them to, but because you no longer play the emotional games they expect. And in that calm, collected presence, you become someone they can't take lightly. Still unsure? Try this. Next time she challenges you with emotion, don't panic. Don't chase. Just stay still. Let your silence say, "I'm not shaken by this." She'll feel it, not with her ears, but with her intuition. And deep down, she'll respect you far more than you think. 6. Become intimidating. Because you're totally fine being alone. I want you to picture this. You walk into a crowded room. You're not saying much. You're not trying to impress. You're not chasing attention. But somehow, all the eyes, they find their way to you. It's not your look. It's not your reputation. It's something harder to define, the energy of a man who doesn't need anyone to be fully himself. Ever met someone like that? I have. And I'll be honest, there's something a little intimidating about them. Not in a threatening or aggressive way, but in this quiet, unshakable way. You don't know what could throw them off. You don't know what rattles them or pushes them into desperation. And because you don't know, you watch your step. You respect them. That right there is the presence of a man who's at peace on his own. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to isolate yourself or live like a hermit. I'm talking about a different kind of freedom, the kind where you're not driven by fear of losing someone. You don't cling. You don't beg for love. You don't put your happiness in someone else's hands. To this kind of man, love isn't where he goes to be rescued. It's a gift. But it's not oxygen. I've worked with a lot of men who walked away from brutal breakups. And here's the crazy part, the ones in the most pain weren't the ones who got left behind. They were the ones who had never learned how to be okay alone. These guys didn't know what to do with themselves. They chased. They begged. They blew up her phone. They tried everything to hold on to something that was already cracked. And in her eyes, he suddenly became predictable, less attractive. Because the dependent man is the man who's lost his weight. Now contrast that with the Stoic man. He doesn't flinch. He feels the pain, yes, but he doesn't act from it. He's hurt, but he holds his dignity. He still wakes up early, still trains, still reads, still moves forward, because his life doesn't pause when someone walks out. And that quiet steadiness, that's the real attraction. Deep attraction doesn't come from sweet words or gifts or being available 24/7. It comes from mystery when she doesn't know if you'll come back. It comes from that subtle tension. If I lose this man, I'm losing something rare, and I might not find it again. That's primal. That's what makes someone miss you even in your silence. So if you're in a season of being alone, don't fear it. Use it. Rebuild yourself. Read. Write. Connect with people who don't need anything from you. Train your body not for compliments, but so you can see your own strength in the mirror. I once told a student of mine, when you no longer need a woman to feel complete, that's when women start to notice you. Because your quiet disturbs people. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you miss them. And that uncertainty creates something valuable: curiosity. Let your presence be so solid that your absence is felt. And when you get there, you're no longer the one who chases. You become the one they chase. Not because you're playing games, but because you're genuinely okay with space. And that is when you become intimidating. Not because you're cold, but because you're too free to be controlled by silence, emotion, or withdrawal. You don't have to chase. You just have to stand still, solid as stone. 7. Turn silence into your loudest statement. I once sat with a man in his early 50s. He had just gone through a painful divorce, the kind that shakes a man to his core. On a quiet afternoon, he looked at me and said, I said everything I could. I explained. I begged. I got angry. I even cried. But the more I spoke, the further she drifted. Then he looked me straight in the eye and asked, "What should I have done instead, coach?" I put a hand on his shoulder and said slowly, "Sometimes, the strongest thing a man can do is stay silent." I want you to sit with that for a moment. Really think about it. Have you ever realized that silence is a language reserved only for men who forged their inner strength? Silence doesn't come from fear. It's not weakness. It's the decision not to lower yourself into chaos, just to be heard. Most of us are conditioned to react with words. We try to defend ourselves. We explain, clarify, argue, seek fairness. But here's the truth. The more you speak, the more weight you lose. The more you explain, the more power you give away. And to someone who has no intention of truly listening, every word becomes just background noise. In Stoic philosophy, there's a very clear principle. Only action is proof. Words, no matter how clever, can never replace consistency. You want respect. Don't convince people with speeches about your values or self-worth. Be silent and show them what you stand for by walking away the moment they cross your line. Your silence becomes your declaration. I'm not engaging in this mess. I don't need to win a fight to know my worth. I'm stepping away, not because I'm defeated, but because I refuse to lower myself just to win something meaningless. Have you ever tried that? Have you ever stopped texting when you were being ignored? Stopped explaining when someone misunderstood you? Stopped chasing validation from someone who no longer saw your worth? If you have, then you've tasted what real freedom feels like. Freedom doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from not needing anyone to define who you are. I've seen women return to their husbands after a long separation, not because he begged, not because he promised to change, but because through it all, he stayed silent, composed, disciplined, and never once lowered himself just to be chosen again. She came back because he didn't chase. See, a man's true power isn't in his voice. It's in that quiet presence that makes others lean in. When you don't react, you remain in control. When you don't reply, you hold the power. And when you stay silent in the middle of chaos, the world starts to wonder, why isn't he speaking? Silence makes them reflect. Silence makes them feel the weight of what's been lost. And silence is a message only disciplined men know how to deliver. So next time when you're insulted, look them in the eye and say nothing. When you're tested, walk away without a word. When you're misunderstood, stay quiet and let your actions speak louder than anything you could ever say. Silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you deep. And in a noisy world, the man who knows how to be silent is the man people can't ignore. My brother, these 7 boundaries weren't shared as rules to control others, but as foundations to help you take control of yourself. Because in a world full of noise and chaos, a truly respected man isn't the loudest one in the room. He's the one who holds his depth, his dignity, and his calm even when tested. If something I shared today spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video. Share it with a brother who might need it today. Subscribe so you don't miss the next lesson on this journey of becoming. And more than anything, I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Your voice matters here, because we're not just learning to survive. We're learning to become the kind of man the world has no choice but to respect, starting from the inside out.